In the late 1940s, economists noticed a strange phenomenon. Even as the world teetered on the edge of financial ruin, sales of small luxuries, specifically red lipstick, didn't drop. They rose. This became known as the lipstick effect, the theory that when we can't afford the big things, we cling desperately to the small ones. Fast forward to 2026, and the lipstick has been replaced by a $9 iced lavender latte, a blind box trinket, or a designer lip oil. We don't just want a product, we want a little treat. It's a phrase that has become a linguistic security blanket for a generation navigating a world that feels increasingly out of reach. Welcome back to Bubble Beam. Today, we're looking at the little treat economy. On the surface, it's a playful internet meme, a way to reward ourselves for the hard work of simply existing. But if we pull back the curtain, the little treat is actually a symptom of a much larger, more somber cultural shift. We aren't just buying pastries, we are buying a sense of agency in a world where we have very little. To understand the little treat, we have to understand what it's replacing. For previous generations, the reward for hard work was linear and tangible: a down payment on a house, a reliable car, a sense of permanent stability. These were the big joys. But for a generation priced out of the housing market and navigating a gig economy that feels more like a treadmill than a career, those milestones have become ghosts. When the big dreams feel statistically impossible, the small joys become our only form of survival. Why save for a house you'll never be able to afford when you can have the sensory peak of a gourmet croissant right now? The little treat is the consolation prize for the death of the middle class. There is a specific sociology at play here. By romanticizing a candle or a $40 keychain, we're practicing what scholars call micro-aesthetics. We are curating a world we can actually control. Think about the haul videos or the get ready with me clips that dominate our feeds. They're obsessed with the tactile, the shiny, and the pristine. If I cannot own the apartment I live in or the city I walk through, I can at least own the most beautiful, high-design lip oil in that room. It's a form of soft protest. We are creating micro-third spaces, miniature zones of peace that fit in our pockets, because the actual third spaces, as we discussed in our last essay, have vanished. 10 years ago, the dominant feminine archetype was the girl boss. She was about productivity, optimization, and leaning in. But as that myth collapsed under the weight of burnout and systemic inequality, we pivoted. We entered the era of gentle consumption. We're told that buying yourself a little something is an act of self-care, but we have to ask, is this actually healing, or is it just the newest way for capitalism to extract value from our exhaustion? The market has noticed that we are tired. Instead of offering us better working conditions or lower rent, it offers us aesthetic products designed to soothe the symptoms of our stress without ever touching the cause. We've traded the glass ceiling for a marble countertop covered in skincare bottles. There is a psychological trap buried in the little treat logic. We justify these purchases as a reward for surviving the mundane, but in doing so, we create a cycle of survival consumption. When the big rewards are gone, our brains crave a quick hits of dopamine to compensate. The $8 matcha latte becomes more than a drink. It's a temporary chemical correction for a high-stress, low-reward environment. But there's a cost to this constant micro-spending. The little treat is often the only thing we feel we have left to spend our discretionary income on, yet it's the very thing that keeps us in a cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. It's the ultimate paradox of 2026. We're spending our way out of the sadness caused by the fact that we can't afford to spend on our future. We aren't just buying a product, we're buying 15 minutes of a lifestyle we can't actually sustain. Then there's the digital aspect. The little treat isn't just for our own sensory pleasure anymore, it's for the camera. In the economy of attention, a treat doesn't fully count unless it's been documented, filtered, and uploaded. We buy the latte not just to drink it, but to photograph it against a specific marble backdrop or a well-lit street corner. We are performing a version of wealth that is hyper-focused on the details because the big picture, the actual foundation of our lives, is too blurry and unstable to look at. If you can't show the world your new home, you show them your new hand cream. This has created what I call the aestheticization of survival. We have turned the act of coping into a content category. When we post a photo of a $40 candle with the caption, "Self-Care Sunday," we aren't just sharing a moment, we are participating in a performance of stability. We are trying to convince our followers, and perhaps ourselves, that we are doing okay. But there's a darker side to this digital curation. When every little treat must be aesthetic enough for the feed, the treat itself becomes a job. The relaxation we were seeking is replaced by the labor of staging the perfect shot. We find ourselves checking the lighting on our pastry rather than actually tasting it. The digital trinket is a placeholder for a life we are too busy performing to actually live. We are decorating the interior of a cage, but because the decorations are so beautiful, we almost forget that we're still inside it. But we have to look at who is actually profiting from our need for comfort. In the last few years, we've seen the rise of what I call the cozy industrial complex. Brands have realized that they don't need to sell us a lifestyle anymore, they just need to sell us an escape from one. Marketing has shifted away from the aspirational and toward the therapeutic. Every advertisement for a skincare serum or a weighted blanket is framed as a hug, a moment of peace, or a respite from the chaos. By framing consumption as a medical necessity for our mental health, these companies have effectively bypassed our financial logic. You wouldn't question the price of medicine, so why question the price of a $20 artisan chocolate bar if it's the only thing keeping you from a breakdown? This is where the little treat becomes a tool of social pacification. When we are given just enough small dopamine hits to keep us from total despair, we are less likely to look upward at the systems causing that despair in the first place. It's the modern version of bread and circuses, but the bread is a sourdough croissant and the circus is a TikTok haul. We're essentially self-medicating with objects, and while there's no shame in seeking comfort where you can find it, we have to recognize that a treat is a temporary band-aid on a structural wound. If we are constantly pacified by the next small purchase, do we lose the productive rage necessary to change our circumstances? We are being sold the illusion of rest, packaged in pastel colors and minimalist branding, while the world outside the shop window continues to burn. So, where does that leave us? Maybe the little treat isn't just about the sugar, the caffeine, or the satisfying click of a plastic compact. Maybe it's a search for a moment of grace in a world that feels increasingly cold and transactional. But as the bubbles of our digital filters get smaller and our physical spaces continue to shrink, we have to wonder, when does the treat stop being a reward and start being a distraction? If we spend all our energy curating the perfect little moment, do we lose the energy required to demand a perfect big world? There is a fine line between self-care and self-pacification. This is Bubble Beam. Tell me in the comments, what was your little treat today? And more importantly, did it actually make you feel better? Let's talk about it.